Let me let this thing. I think I shared it to the wrong Twitch, but that's okay.
Oh no.
Let me turn this. Okay, there we go. There we go. Let's see here. Kind of get everything situated here. Okay, good there. Good
All right, all
there.
right.
Okay, there we go. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And B2 desktop. So, okay. All right. I think that's good there. I think we're freaking. Okay. All right. So, how are you doing today? How are you doing? What?
I'm great. How are you?
What's going on great this week?
What isn't going on great this week?
You know,
Actually, here in Montana, we have recently gone recreational. So the recreational sales actually started the beginning of this year. So as of January 1st, and actually it's kind of weird because Montana is divided by counties. So the state actually allowed certain counties to remain medical only since cannabis has been legal here for some time now, just medical only. What's up, Tanya? How's it going,
shout out.
girl? Zucker person,
Heyo.
shut up.
I totally feel you on that. I got Zucker
Oh,
prison
shit.
for wishing Betty White to rest in peace because I was glorifying death. I don't.
R.I.P. Betty White. Still R.I.P.
Yeah, absolutely. You know you're a good person when you live to 99 years old and people say, "Oh, they're gone too soon."
Right. And actually, there's a suggestion. I'm sure it's Facebook, one of those things. What's good, Ted?
Heyo.
It's one of those things that says for when it's actually her 100th birthday, they said to like donate to a bunch of shelters and stuff in her name to make
Yes,
it her 100th birthday party that she would have wanted, which I think is pretty cool.
that's kick ass. That's kick ass. There's
Betty
nobody
White's
that
OG.
I
She deserves that kind of
yeah,
love.
there's nobody that I know slash don't know that is so awesome.
Right.
Because if you're like me, back in the late 80s, early 90s, you watch Betty White on TV. You watch the Golden Girls on TV after school.
Everybody still watches Golden Girls. That's still a thing. That show
Oh,
aged so well, considering
okay.
it was about a bunch of old ladies who were roommates.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of those things where first off, how did it get so big? Secondly, I'm not going to say why is it so big? It's so big because everybody has an aunt that's like one of those four ladies.
I think it has to do with just like the senses of humor, the combination of how everybody like interacted with each other, and then the
Okay.
vibe was like it was either the most ridiculously good acting, or you could just tell that genuinely cared about each other, and like you got that vibe. It was like feel good, funny, touched a bunch of hot button topics. There was a lot of stuff that they addressed in that show that was like controversial for the time. And then it was a bunch of
Absolutely.
like old white ladies who were doing it. So who was going to say anything about it?
Yeah, because I feel like once you get past a certain age, really, nobody can really tell you what to do. They can recommend that you do stuff, but like whether you
Mm-hmm.
do it or not is totally up to you. What
True
are they going to
story.
do?
It was a good show.
Wrestle you to the ground?
Well,
Oh
like
man.
Betty White, the least controversial, like leading of Hollywood, I would say, right? Like when did
Oh,
Betty White have a
absolutely.
scandal ever her entire career?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And
Oh hell yeah, Ted.
that's what's so crazy is she's had probably one of the longest one of the longer careers in Hollywood, but the whole entire time, even from the 30s and 40s, scandal free, scandal free.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that I actually read like a whole thing about Betty White well before she passed away. But it
Hmm.
was like how she had always been child free and she was never criticized in the media about that. And you could arguably say that she's had a long, successful career. She's never really gone out of the public eye in a way that a lot of
Yeah.
like other careers that they did. And like even
Hmm.
somebody as uncontroversial as Alex Trebek had his own like scandal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Smoking with the Golden Girls, that's what's up. That would
That's
have
good shit
been
right there.
lit. Literally.
Ayo. So let's get into our topic for the night. Our
Mm.
topic for the night is a thing that people often wonder. Uh, I get asked this all the time in October, November, and December. It's one of the things that's going to save you money in the long run, and it's a question that people have been asking, for the ages, really. And the question is, now that I've grown all this weed, what do I do with my trim? I've got the sugar leaf. I've got fan leaf and stuff. How do we separate? What do we do with it? And more importantly, how can we make it how can we extract the medication out of it so we can enjoy it in the future? Because if you're like me, when if you throw all that trim and stuff away, oh man, it hurts your feelings, because there's THC on there, but you're throwing it away. It's like, and
Now,
that's
for
what we're going to
people who
talk about.
are
Go ahead.
Yeah, and for people who are new to cannabis, who aren't familiar with trim, like the terminology, trim is what you're actually cutting off of the plant, because there is actually shake, which you'll hear talked about as well. And shake is the plants that naturally, or the leaves and stems that naturally fall off of the plant. And shake, because it's a natural process, will have time to develop and will have a
Okay.
higher THC content. That's not really what we're talking about. It is part of it, but that's not necessarily trim. And then trim is broken down into two parts. It's sugar leaves and fan leaves. And sugar leaves are actually the leaves that you trim from the bud or near the bud. It's smaller leaves. Fan leaves are the big, like mother leaves. And typically you trim fan leaves also for cloning, but you also trim
Yes.
off fan leaves for removing from the plant to encourage the plant to grow, focus its energy on growing the buds. So when we talk about trim, we're talking about specifically the stuff that you intentionally trim off, not the stuff that naturally falls off.
Absolutely, and that's one thing that I just skip over, because a lot of people, we talk about this stuff, but a lot of times people are like, "What are you talking about?" And a lot of times
There's a
I'll
lot
just,
of terminology.
and it's good to learn. It's good to learn, but it's good to learn, but I want everybody to remember that we're not talking down to you. You got to start somewhere. There's a thing that, I don't care who you are. Even Alex Trebek had a first day on Jeopardy. So yeah. Hey, and Ted's on the hunt. He's on the hunt.
Yep.
One of the things that I noticed that Ted does that freaking, most growers won't tell you about, is he tries to use as much of the plant from his harvest as he can. He makes oils, he does a couple other things, but that's one of the things that's going to bring the cost down of your grow, is using it for different things. Yes, you produce your flour, but what you'll notice is, just like any other gardening, you produced a fair amount of green waste. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about your root balls. I'm just talking about a way to extend the efficiency of your grow, and the stuff that has THC in it, ways to extract it and freaking continue on. We're not really talking about freaking root balls or making root tea and all this stuff like that. We're mainly focusing on trim, like she says, not on shake, but on trim. Um, I'll go ahead. The first one of the things that I love to do, and I started doing it. I started doing some work on it this week. Uh, is to take those leaves and take that trim and make ice water hash. Uh, if you
Okay,
look
for
in
sure.
coming,
That's, I would say, the biggest one.
a lot of people don't know what that is, and that's no problem, because we'll be putting out a video that will show you what it's all about. And it's basically using ice and water to harden your trichomes and separate them from the leaf material, to freaking corral them up for smoking or cooking or whatever. And what it does is it allows you to extract all that THC that's left on your fan leaves and your sugar leaves and all that stuff, and corral it for smoking. So you have the little bit extra. But it's one of my favorite ways. Matter of fact, I was smoking some hash earlier today. Super stony. What's
Good
one of your
stuff.
fa- what's one of your ways to freaking do with your things to do with trim?
So one of my research ways, and I am not a grower yet, it's something that I want to get into. So all of the things that I talk about is stuff that I've researched, stuff that I'm familiar with, but not necessarily something I've done. So it was interesting to me when I was doing research. The sugar leaves is the THC heavy, dense trichomes, cannabinoids, all that stuff, because it's so close to the flower. That's where all the plant concentrated on putting its energy into. Now, when you're talking about fan leaves, that was actually really interesting to me, because fan leaves are not necessarily high in THC content. It's
No.
That's just not what those fan leaves are normally for. They do have some THC content. You can harvest
Yes.
some THC from it, but what you want to look for is actually CBD content that are in fan leaves. So when you're thinking about, diversifying plants, you're not going to be looking at fan for other uses.
Absolutely.
In cannabis leaves, especially if you're thinking about health benefits, like Ted said, you're thinking about cooking, and Ted's talking more about like infusion stuff, which is, a little bit later on. But specifically
Exactly.
for fan leaves, look at, how you can add it into stuff like smoothies. Smoothies
Yes.
are, it's all the rage right now. Green, healthy. We don't talk about cannabis when we talk about that stuff. And one of our biggest things when we talk about cannabis is normalization. So why aren't we talking about the health benefits that come with, cannabis plants, especially when you're self-growing, what goes into your plant. It's the same thing as growing your own vegetable garden. And if you can use
Absolutely.
that, extra plant to turn into something healthy for you, I think that's so cool. That's something that I would be super interested in, is learning cooking with recipes with the fan leaves to turn them into stuff.
Yes.
Cause like there's Greek recipes out there, like they use for traditions. Could we do the same with cannabis leaves? In
Hmm.
a discard, we looking substituted in our everyday lives, That
And
was the one
that's
that I was pretty excited about.
and that's one of the great things about cannabis, is a lot of people don't realize is that there's always been uh, a type of whole plant type of you know section of growers that are interested in extracting all of the uses out of that plant. And it's interesting that you say smoothies, because people are already using hemp seeds in smoothies. And hemp seeds have a lot of that,
Mm-hmm.
those CBDs and stuff like that, and a lot of those a lot of those ingredients that are helpful. And fan leaves is something that's often overlooked, and even by me. And fan leaves are one of those things. It's almost like a basil or a watercress. it's not going to give a bunch of
Hey,
flavor,
Natalie.
but it's going to give those hidden benefits that they may not necessarily change the taste, but they're going to be in general healthier for you. I'm no health nut, as you probably can tell, but healthier is the way to go. A lot of people, and I am as I get older, I'm like, oh man, I can't eat 27 cheeseburgers a day and drink 2 liters of Mountain Dew. I'm freaking, yeah, it's gonna make my back hurt. But anyway, it's one of those things where with normalization will come more experimentation for the health benefits. And I think health benefits aren't talked about simply because that, there's no federally legal way to test and get valid results. So you're not going to see a lot of people talk about it because quote unquote it's easy to debunk. Oh yes,
Oh, he's tried,
absolutely.
Natalie. He just shouldn't. Not that he can't, it's that he probably shouldn't. And it's interesting because we talk about health in like a we always talk about health when it comes to cannabis, when it's related to pain management, when it's related to mental health, the extreme stuff that requires medication to help with, right? Well, we don't really get into how cannabis as a plant as a whole is actually beneficial in so many other ways. I became lactose intolerant later on in life, and it sucks, okay? And there are a lot of like plant-based milk alternatives out there that are, maybe some are tasty, but there's a lot of issue, especially when it comes to cooking and recipes, because it doesn't have the same content that regular milk does. And when we're talking
Yes.
about like health stuff, when we're talking about hemp seeds, hemp milk is actually super healthy as far as vitamins go, healthy fats, that sort of thing. We think about healthy fats, we think about avocados. I'm thinking about I want my cereal to not taste like butt, But
Okay.
with hemp milk, with hemp milk, it actually has a high enough fat content where you can substitute 1-to-1 ratio. Whereas with most other
Okay.
plant-based milks, you can't do that when you're coming to cooking. So like when I make, biscuits and sausage gravy, I can make biscuits and sausage gravy with a healthy fat and a healthy with the hemp milk instead of regular milk that messes me up, but it tastes good.
Okay.
So it's beneficial and it tastes good. And I think it's
Okay.
fantastic that that's just one way to substitute cannabis in everyday life where it's not necessarily THC based, but it's still in that like healthy, moving forward kind of way. Hemp milk is actually, it's super creamy. It's got like vitamin B in it. It's got the healthy fats in it. And it's not like a plant flavor. It's very mild. I don't like the ones that are artificially flavored, like vanilla. I don't like the like artificially sweetened one. It does have some sweetener in it. So it's got
Okay.
like that very comparison when you have like milk, it hits your mouth, it coats your tongue, it's a little bit sweet, it tastes a lot like that. It's just plant-based, so of course it's not like, oh yeah, this is so milk,
Okay.
I'm not gonna lay claims on that, but it is a very pleasant alternative for somebody who still likes milk, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Still good.
Now, I've had hemp milk before, and like you said, as a
Mm,
person that I don't really care for milk. It's not my favorite. It's not my jam. But hemp milk, I was actually impressed with. I was impressed with the the food like taste of it. And what I mean is, a lot of this stuff that you get, like the almond milk and the freaking soy milk, it doesn't taste like real food. I don't know how to
yeah.
describe it. It tastes like manufactured, but hemp milk doesn't have that. Oh man, that's a great one.
Oh.
That's
Over processed, weird flavors, additives. Yeah, hemp milk doesn't do that. And actually, it's there's one that's made. There's actually a few different ones, but I know that you can actually find hemp milk at some Albertsons. I know that it's available
yes.
there. If you live near Winco, I know that it's also available at Winco. And it just depends on brand, but I would say go with the unflavored one if you can, like it comes with sweetener. in it, but it's not like a high calorie content sweetener where it's not like gross sweet. It's not like chocolate or
Okay.
something. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely worth a try.
That's just a side thing. That's one of the things that I've always wondered uh about freaking all the soy milks and all the other milks and stuff is that the people that are trying to be the healthiest are like eating this, drinking this stuff that tastes totally processed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, wait, hold on.
Absolutely.
Let me see what Ted's doing. Ted's always up to something crazy.
Sativa baby oil.
Tiva baby.
Hell.
Uh,
Shoulder Devil says, "Rub it down, Ted."
we're trying to keep this an all ages show here. Uh,
Nah.
well, you know what though? That's interesting that he says that. When you infuse that oil in your hot tub, how do you keep the oil out of your filters?
That's a good question. Because I know you can't wear like sunscreen and stuff because it'll mess up your stuff.
Yeah, as a person that's short, and I have a hot tub, but it's no, stop. It's not that kind of hot tub. It's a medical hot tub. Okay, this is not like
Everybody look out for
yeah.
Slizwaq's next hot tub stream on Twitch.
It's one of those things when you want to ask people to come over and get in your hot tub, they look at you all crazy, and it's like, dude, no.
I love that. Hot tubs are great. I have never had a weird, creepy time in a hot tub. I'm down.
Well,
But you know what? I'm lucky I didn't get kidnapped as a kid either. So PSA.
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 Oh man.
So yeah. Trim.
That's trim, yes. Back on topic, back on track. One of the things that I like to do with my trim, and we made a post about this a couple months ago, is a lot of times what I'll do is another way that I can extract that last bit of THC out of my trim is I'll take that trim and I'll put it in a coffee grinder and give it a couple bumps in the coffee grinder, and I'll take that and use
Nice.
like you ever see those tea bag holders that you dunk into your tea? I'll take it and put it in
The
there in some
infusers.
cheesecloth. Yeah, and I will
Nice.
freaking just let it simmer in there with my green tea and let it simmer for about 5 or 10 minutes, and it's a nice addition to some morning coffee. It's a nice It'll still allow your coffee to pump you up, but it'll allow you to pump you up in a way that's not jittery. And in general,
Nice.
I feel much better when I do that. I didn't think it would work, and yeah. Matter of fact, Chris Duty was talking to me about that. Chris and Jennifer White were talking to me about that, and I actually tried it, and it was uh, surprisingly potent for what it was. Just by taking those leaves,
Okay.
putting them in a coffee grinder, bumping it, and then just put them in that freaking little cheesecloth and put them in there. Oh man, I was pleasantly surprised. It's a nice morning surprise and a good alternative to a little bit of freaking marijuana or hash oil in your coffee.
Nice, yeah. Because well, and most like artificial creamers, most dairy-free creamers have some kind of oil in them. So when you think about like
Yes.
adding oil to your morning coffee, it seems kind of weird, but not really, because that's what non-dairy creamers are. Is there's a lot of oil in them. But my question is are you talking about sugar? You're talking about sugar leaf, I'm assuming, and then are they
Sugar leaf.
dried? Is it shake?
They are basically sugar, a combination of sugar and fan leaves. And what I'll do is
Okay.
because we grow indoors, we're always trimming a lot and just defoliating.
Hmm.
So we end up with a lot of fan leaves and a lot of sugar leaves. This is mainly a fan leaf type thing, but what I'll do is I'll take them
Okay.
and I'll dry them on the windowsill for a couple of days and let them get dry. I tried
Mhm.
to do it when they were wet and it gunked up my coffee grinder, but it still worked the same way.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But I
Okay.
let them dry until they break, and then I take them, crumble them up, and put them in my coffee grinder. Couple of bumps, excuse me. Then I'll take about maybe about a 16th of a cup of that material and put it in there and just dunk it
Okay.
in there with my hot coffee or hot tea, and it's the heat activates it and releases the THC and the cannabinoids that are, and it's not a bunch. It
Hmm.
releases it into your drink, and the heat is what starts to freaking break the skins on those trichomes and kind of start activating the THC and making it combine. It's really a lot of
Hmm.
science that happens with it in order for it to happen, but it's one of the most
Yeah.
simple things that you can do that takes little to no equipment. You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't have a coffee grinder, once those things are ground up, some people will just roll them in their hand and put them in their coffee and then run it through a strainer and strain it out.
That's smart. Yeah. Then that's another thing they was researching is that you can just add your sugar leaf, your fan leaves, whatever, to anything that you want for that added boost. And the way that, but there, you do have to have some sort of heat process because decarboxylation is what releases the cannabinoids, the terpenes, all that, all the good stuff.
Yes,
That's what releases
yes,
it. And
and
so
that's
there's a different, yeah, there's different ways to prep it, but because you're doing the heat with your coffee or some sort of tea, that water's hot. So it's gonna do that process maybe a little bit slower than it would with, just typical burning or baking or cooking or whatever. But yeah, that is something that was really interesting to me is that you can just put leaves on your stuff, like Ted said. Add leaf to your morning coffee or your tea, and that's a good medicine with your THC as well. You're going to be able to get your dose the same.
I'm yeah, it's one of those things, and I don't want to sound like some kind of crazy cult member or something, but marijuana is one of those things where 90% of the plant is usable. Everything, as they
Yeah.
say in the South about pigs, from the rooter to the tutor, from the root ball to the tip of the plant, there's ways that you can extract freaking medicinal qualities from all that stuff. Because there's even people that take their root balls when they finish with their plants and boil them down for tea. Now,
Mm.
I don't know about the effects of that, and I don't know how that would work. I'm not even sure if that's if it what it does, but there's people out there that are doing it, and some stuff, I got to tell you, uh, it's not. I'll tell you. All I'm going to say is that there's a lot of psychological connection with getting with how you feel and getting better. Um, it's one of
Hmm.
those things that
For sure.
uh your mind, I can give you a placebo and your mind can make you better in some instances. I'm
Hmm.
not saying it's going to cure cancer or anything like that, but the thing is, uh a lot of it's psychological, and you have
Covenant.
I'm not I'm not going to say you have to be a believer, but you have to explore the possibilities. And
Have an open mind.
there's so many commercials that I see on the TV. I see these people out on a field. I see these people riding bicycles. I see these people in bathtubs. I see these people partying and fishing at the park, and whatever, and it's they're doing that because of whatever drug they were taking. But immediately after that commercial, there's a fast talking person that comes on there with the mandatory federal freaking all the freaking things that could possibly go wrong. And yeah, the only problems I've got from marijuana were, a, I freaking slept super awesome, or B, I was super hungry.
And or pain free, and or not having a bad head day, and or the side
Exactly.
they should be listing, if cannabis wasn't a commercial, the side effects they would be listing would be all of the benefits, and then don't consume while driving, the typical not for driving, and make sure
Yeah.
that you have snacks, like
Yeah, because it's not. It's one of those things where when I was a kid, I would go trick or treating. I was under the impression that strangers would try to dump hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of drugs into my bag as a freaking kid and try to freaking, I was under that impression. Be on the lookout. Watch out. But that's not a thing. I don't know what I don't know why I mentioned that, but yeah, that's hilarious. But anyway,
actually, on off topics, the first time that I had a gentleman who was from the South tell me what chitlins were, he used that exact phrase, somewhere between the rooter and the tutor.
Ow.
By the way, Ted. By the way, Ted, bees are an amazing addition to your garden. That's super awesome.
You know what? And that's, there's I don't know. We're trying something new, and what we're trying to do is, in the interest of making our program more freaking all ages friendly, we're attempting to not smoke on camera. So what I did, maybe not recommended, is I spent about 45 minutes smoking entirely a bunch of weed before I came on camera, and that might have not been the best idea. So live and
I would
learn.
say probably not.
So yeah.
Oh, but so you say 90% of the plant is usable. I say 100% of the plant is usable. And here's why. Because one of the other ways to use your trim was as compost. And it's actually really you're transferring your high. Thanks, Ted. Appreciate you. Good looking out. So there are actually regulations for commercial grows on how much they can use their like excess trim, and how much,
Okay.
based on how much like tonnage or percentage of grow that they produce, they have to use it as compost. And that's a great tip for a home grower, is to compost what you throw away, because at that point it's not throwing something away, it's turning it into something that you can use for your next grow. So theoretically it's 100% cycle as a plant.
Absolutely. As a hobbyist, home grower, experimental DIY guy, whatever you want to call it, um, I absolutely reuse the dirt. I love to freaking take the dirt from my old plants, and it classifies as compost because a lot of times I'll cut the root balls and leave the root combined with the dirt, and I'll take that dirt and put it either in a wheelbarrow or a small pile in my backyard, turn it intermittently, and a lot of times because I have dogs, I'll use that to fill my holes or use it in my garden or whatever. If I
Mm-hmm.
have or I like indoor plants, so if I'm replanting some succulents or if I'm putting plants in a bigger pot, I'll use that dirt along with those roots and stuff in there to just to get that. I feel like even though I use a good solid soil, uh, even though I'm giving my plants good stuff, I feel like my house plants get an extra boost when I use that old soil with the roots in it. It's just it my house plants go nuts. I've got an amaryllis right now that's just going absolutely crazy. I think it's bloomed like 3 or 4 times in the last 6 months, and it's to
That's
me it's
amazing.
amazing. I don't know if any of you guys grow a lot of house
Now
plants,
see,
but
my question See, my only question with that was composting plants. Sometimes trim is not trim that you want. Sometimes trim is there because it has some kind of disease on it. Take that diseased plant and turn it into compost? Does the composting process, because true composting is like a thermo process that breaks down
Yes.
plant matter, almost like true, true whatever plant matter, does that kill certain things, or should you stay away from composting, disease trim?
As a general rule, if it has any type of mold or bugs on it, what I do is it goes directly to the burn barrel.
Okay.
Simply uh, because we grow so many plants around here, and when I say plants I mean from vegetables outdoors, green peppers,
Tomatoes.
bell peppers, tomatoes, to our indoor succulents, amaryllis, freaking wandering jews, Christmas cactus, to our aloe vera, to our plants inside. For us it makes sense to, at the first sign of any pest, eradicate them. So anytime I have any pest, I take that trim, I take that leaf material, and absolutely take it to the burn barrel. Just because it's
Okay.
normally not a problem, but just to be on the safe side, I eradicate it like that to eliminate the chance of future pests, because we actually have plants going year round. I have indoor plants that are going year round. So I don't want my succulents to get
Mm-hmm.
powder mildew. I don't want my succulents to get aphids. I don't want my amaryllis or my Christmas cactus to get aphids or spider mites or anything like that. And it's kind of wacky because
For sure.
some of the plants that I have, spider mites are beneficial to. We have rose plants in our yard, and the spider mites are actually beneficial to rose plants. They love rose plants, and it's kind of a balance to keep the bad pests out and the good pests going. So what we generally do is any visible pest we eradicate.
Mm. That's interesting, Tanya. If you put it in a bucket of water with the lid on and let it sit until it smells like sewage, then you'll be safe to add to compost. It's really interesting.
That's and I have heard that. I definitely have heard that, but my problem is keeping track of things. So what ends up happening is I end up with a bucket that smells like sewage, but I don't remember what it's for, so I throw it out.
That's
It's one
fair.
of the
That's fair, man.
side effects of weed smoking. But it's
But I think that it's interesting because we're talking about how to save your trim. There is a point where you have to use common sense and not be the most ridiculously frugal you can be. There are at some points you should use common and say, I probably don't need this. It's not worth saving.
and that's one of the things that I use is I use a theoretical efficiency meter. And what I mean is the time I'm going to put into this trim worth the benefit that I'm going to get out of it? If I have an ounce of trim, um, it's not really worth it to run it in the bubble magic machine or do anything with it, because most of my the things that I do with it will require at least a half pound of trim. So the best
Wow.
bet for
Okay.
me is not to necessarily throw it away, but to save it and store it properly. Which, just like you would I store my trim just like I store my weed. I don't put humi packs in
Nice.
it, but I store it in glass containers until it dries out, and I vent it and freaking just like I would regular weed. And when it's dried and cured, quote unquote, I'll actually take it and put it in a 5 gallon bucket with the lid on. And I just do that just to keep the bugs out. Yeah, it's going to get dry, but you don't care as long as we keep the bugs out and we keep it dirt and dust free.
Mm, okay. So on that train of thought, one of the things I ran across was just decarboxylizing your trim and having it ready to use to add to can of butter, to make infused oils, infuse actual food stuffs. So would it be
Okay.
smart to decarboxylize your trim as you get it? Because it's only like an hour in the oven, depending on how thin the
No.
layer is. Okay.
Reason being is because you get a degradation of THC, CBD, and CBN freaking from the time you use it. And what I mean is, it's
Oh,
not like as soon as you decarb it, it goes to nothing. But for me, I may get some trim. It may be a month until I use that trim. By that time, it's
interesting.
going to be at about 75% of the strength approximately. And with, if you're growing indoors, a lot of times you're not producing large amounts. And the thing is, it may be 2 or 3 months until you get enough trim to do something with. What I end up
Hmm.
doing is I take my trim as I store it, I'll take it out and weigh it and decarb it as needed. That way I maintain as much potency as I can, and my trim
Mm.
is freshly decarbed. So it's not going to be, or when I'm using it, it's going to be at the maximum that it could possibly be. Instead of taking a chance, is the trim that I decarbed last month, is it still as powerful as the trim I just decarbed to add to it? So it gives me more of a consistency thing as well.
Okay. So you're basically going through a curing process for your trim to save for future use.
Yes, absolutely. Because
Okay.
the reason you dry and cure weed is to prolong your storage, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to store that trim forever. So what I'll do is I put it in glass at first and then vent it for probably several weeks just to make sure that I'm getting all the moisture out. So when I go to store it in that 5 gallon container, I'm not getting any chances of mold or mildew. And that's just like
Mm-hmm.
you dry and cure your weed so you can store it for longer. I do the same thing with my trim so I can store it longer. It's just a matter of keeping everything clean, not getting mold, because mold is one of the issues. Mold is one of the things where if you get mold on your plants, you get PM. It's one of the things where you don't want to use that plant again because you don't want to smoke mold. The worst thing you can do is smoke moldy weed because it's going to give you a respiratory infection. Okay, you're going to get the highest chance for, because you're basically heating up mold and inhaling it into your lungs, and it's still mold. Some
Yeah.
people say, well, the heat
It's
burns it
like a
and
spore
kills it.
going into your throat.
Exactly, that's true. And
Nah.
it will sit in there for weeks at a time, and eventually it'll freaking kick off, and you'll be like, "Arr!" It's just like that. You should have never
RSV
ate
is
that
no
gas
joke.
station sushi. Yeah, yeah, it's and I understand you lost a whole crop to mold, and you don't want to throw it away, but it's not worth it. It's really not.
No.
It's you're going to be able to taste that mold throughout there. It's going to change the flavor. No matter how good that weed, how high it's getting you, the risk of freaking getting yourself infected all crazy, and it's not worth it. It's just not. It's the risk is not worth the reward. You're you're better off just starting
Yeah.
over.
And we're trying to find ways to be frugal but not at your detriment. We're trying to find ways to be as I don't know, is it low carbon? I don't know. I think it's smart. Use your stuff. It's smart. Another one that I found was interesting because it's something that we do already. If you're a regular consumer, it's something that you always have on hand. It's keef. And
Okay.
taking the sugar leaves and rubbing them against a silk screen to actually separate just the keef from the actual plant matter is another like low budget, easy to do process. And what another interesting recommendation was to have trimmers all of the keef that from when, so like all of the trichomes as you trim, and then
Okay.
store that and use that or build that up. But I thought the keef one was really interesting because keef is something that
Absolutely.
you have already, and Keef is versatile. People don't really think about it. I mean, it's always like, oh yeah, put some keef on your bowl and stuff. But you can use keef for salves. You can use keef for oil infusions. You can use keef for canna butter. You can use keef for tons of stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And keef is one of those things. It doesn't take, you don't have to grow
It's not
weed
for
to
straight
freaking,
straight.
yeah. You don't have to. You don't have to have special equipment to get keef. For me, if you smoke weed, if you and you grind it up all the time, it's worth going to the smoke shop and getting a good grinder so you can grind up all your weed and catch that keef. It's worth the extra 5 minutes.
Nice.
Really,
Yeah,
cannabis.
exactly. Cannabis root, herpes, blisters, pimples, acne. So any kind of, that's really interesting.
Yes, but I want to put out there, not certified by the FDA. Don't sue me. But those are true statements.
Mm.
It's and
And
a lot of
then
people don't really
be,
go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a variety of stuff that you can use your actual plants for. There's a lot of variety in how you treat your trim, and I think that focusing on what's low and what's high are important because you can do something like a rosin press and you can take your trim and turn it into rosin. Absolutely possible. But rosin presses are ridiculous. those are those are like some high quality H2O, like, whoa, you're a professional, in my opinion. That's like some
Yes,
out there stuff. But
yes,
taking something like a silk screen and rubbing your stuff over it, I mean, that's something that anybody could do. So it's like a wide range of what you can do and what you can't do. What's
and it's
reasonable for you?
and that's the thing. It's one of those things where it's kind of like a hatchet. I can give you a hatchet, and there's like 27 different things you can do with it. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I might be
Oh.
allergic to not smoking weed. The
Shoulder devil
the
says, shoulder devil says, it's the RSV. You got moldy weed.
the the okay, and that's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that THC contains a topical it contains a pain reliever. And if you apply it topically, it will freaking I forget what the technical term is. It's not a pain reliever, anti-inflammatory. It's an
Mm, mm.
anti-inflammatory, and when you apply it topically, a lot of times it will take care of that inflammation. A lot of times, acne, herpes, blisters, all the eczema, a lot of it's from inflammation, and THC will react with that and reduce that inflammation. And it's one of those things where a lot of people think, all you guys using all that weed out there. Not There's more ways to use cannabis than smoking. Okay, I'm gonna say that one more time. There's
And
more
that's
ways to use cannabis than smoking.
it's really interesting that you say that because I actually had a conversation with a gentleman who lives out in Sweden, and I was asking him, excuse me, I got the RSV too. No. So I was asking him I was asking him what his laws were on cannabis, and he said that in Sweden it's still illegal. And he said that it's because most people that use cannabis just use it recreationally. They're just looking to chase a high. And I found that really interesting because he was completely unaware of any other uses other than using cannabis to get high. He wasn't aware of salves. He wasn't aware of creams. He wasn't aware of the anti-inflammatory. He wasn't aware of the pain management. He wasn't aware of, high CBD, low THC plants, none of it. So it's still, even though we know, even though the research and the information is out there, even though, the cannabis plant has been broken down, and it's even at an FDA level, you can find information on what cannabis can do, even
Yes.
all the stupid warning labels that say, oh no, even with
Yeah.
that, there's still people who just do not know. And that's the biggest part of normalization. People just do not know, even with all of this information available.
It's
Nice.
absolutely
Tinctures for internal.
yes,
There are
and
so many
it's
ways to use THC, to use cannabis in ways that have nothing to do with getting high.
absolutely, and we are literally on the edge of an oh man, I sound like some kind of cult member. We're on the edge of a green revolution, and what I mean is
Stop saying.
between between the advent of the improvement of information exchange, combined with cannabis being newly legalized in a lot of places, people are able to exchange information freaking at record speed. So your great granny. Your great grandma's recipe for cannabis salve, I can get that from across the world in like 10 minutes. And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
you're talking to that guy in Sweden. It's that world connection, that freaking relay of information that is making things grow by leaps and bounds with the exploratory uh freaking I don't even know, the exploratory shit crap.
The connections. I see you, Natalie.
Yes.
I see you. Covenant. That's what I'm saying. Covenant.
Yes.
Covenant.
Covenant. Okay. Yes.
Also, Ted, Jack Harris strain, that's freaking dope. Literally.
Well,
That is like
to
bomb.com. I'm
to
super pumped about that.
to me, cannabis is one of those things where there's a thing that I know about that could help lots of people, but how do I introduce that to them? And freaking, how do I let them know, hey, it's not going to make you grow a third eyeball. You're not going to get a freaking an extra chromosome, none of that stuff. Because I see, because of the area I live, there's freaking the average person is over 60. And I'm seeing a
Hmm.
wave now of people that were misinformed their whole lives and are getting great and wonderful benefits from cannabis. It's not what I say; it's what they're telling me and the results that they're seeing. Because there's no matter what I say about weed or cannabis, whatever you want to call it, nobody believes that it will help them until it actually does. And that's what the goal is. The goal is to improve your quality of life. It's not for me, it's not to get high, even though smoking weed is enjoyable, but it's to relieve what ails me, and it's to relieve what ails me without producing additional effects.
And that's a big one. I think that a lot of people are understanding now that there is.
Oh boy,
y'all,
I
y'all
love
a
it.
bunch of clowns up in here. We're the clown covenant.
Yeah.
But uh, it's incredible to me that we have the opportunity to share this information with y'all jokers. That we
I
can
love it.
grow community like this and have these conversations and talk about how to, take care of your extra trim, how to, utilize that. And it's not just us who's giving out that information, it's you guys who are giving out your ideas, your uses, which I think is fantastic because that's the goal, normalization. And it is all these
Absolutely.
people out there who are having to do a complete 180 against all of the propaganda, all of the reefer madness stuff that they grew up with. A lot of it is out of a real need to just not have the side effects, the 7 or 8 pills just to be able to function that give them, half those pills they're taking is to combat the side effects of something else that they're taking.
Absolutely.
I remember after my first kid, I was super overweight. And this was before I understood that I had PCOS. And the doctors were like, oh, well, you're really healthy, but you're super overweight. So we need to treat your overweightness. So here's a diet pill. Well, I started taking the diet pill and it was making my heart have problems. So what did they want to do? Get off the diet pill? No. They wanted they wanted to put me on freaking heart medication to slow down my racing heart from these diet pills. And I'm just like, the stupidest I've ever heard in my life. I was in my 20s. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I am healthy.
yeah,
And that was
it's
before like they would not listen to me as a patient. And then, if I had just like trusted that blindly and went down that path, holy crap, really? Like, not worth it. But anyways,
absolutely.
and cannabis does help treat some of the symptoms that I have with my PCOS. So it's just this whole full circle thing, man. Whole full circle thing. Putting yourself in timeout, good.
and that's, you know,
You go to your heart and think about what you've done.
and that's the thing. What we're doing here is freaking, it's a, for me, it's an important thing. It's not, we're building a community, and the community doesn't belong to me and Rachel. The community belongs to everybody, where we can have a free exchange of ideas and grow our knowledge and freaking of marijuana and freaking how it can help people. And I think we've done that. We've tried to freaking do that at all levels, and I think we're on track. It's it's probably one of those
you know,
things that one of the
love it.
greater things that I've been part of in my life. So you know how I love it. You guys are awesome. Oh man,
Yeah. So
come
hopefully you guys learned about some new things. Hopefully you guys learned about some good things.
absolutely. It's we've had a great time with you. We're coming up on the hour. We're gonna freaking end it here. But I also want you guys to think about everybody that's here. We're gonna try to do some raffles and stuff because giveaways. Facebook is kind of meh, meh, meh. So we're gonna try to do some raffles. They're gonna be. I got to figure out some details. There's gonna be some more info about that. But yeah, let us know in the groups if you'd like to see that. We've got some handmade glass, some silicone pipes and stuff that we're gonna be raffling off. But yeah, let us know. My name is Slizwaq, and that is Roachel T. Today we talked about what to do with your trim. I hope you'll join us again next Thursday at 8 p.m. for our next podcast. We'll see you next time.